Okay, so the last step for this lesson is comparing the total amount of carbon produced when we were living in Canada versus when we do activities back in our old country, okay? Now this one that we already created is showing us our total amount of carbon and comparing how each category is responsible for that use. So in other words, of all the carbon that I created when I was living in Saudi Arabia, right? How much of that carbon went towards transportation use? How much went towards home use, right? It's not telling us in this graph the absolute amount of carbon that we created, the total number. It's just showing us which categories was using the most carbon. If we want to compare the total amount of carbon that we created, we have to do one more graph. So let's take a look. I'm going to go back here. Now I'm on my Canadian footprint. If you look at the spreadsheet that I'm on here, Canadian footprint, okay? And I'm going to take the total amount the total amount that I created, and I'm going to put that here. Okay, so I created total amount. I'm going to put here for Canada. Lael created 2,912 kilograms of carbon. Excuse me, sorry. Now, I'm going to take the Saudi Arabia amount. Now, in this case, the Saudi Arabia amount I accidentally deleted, but this is a good learning opportunity. If you did not total up your amount correctly in the first assignment, this is an opportunity to fix it, and then let me know in your assignment that you fixed it so I can give you an extra mark in the old assignment, okay? How do we calculate something on a spreadsheet? It's pretty easy, actually. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the empty space underneath all the numbers we want to add up. Notice I'm not adding up the amount that the average person did because that's not what I'm interested in. I'm adding up my own value while I was living in that country. So I'm going to go to the row, and this is called a cell, these blocks. I'm going to go to the cell that's underneath all of the numbers I want to add up, and I'm going to put equals sum, which is like adding the sum of something, and then I'm going to look at what number did it start, what number do I want to start adding from? Well, I want to start adding from here. So that is from B4. I'm going to put a colon, which is the 2 dots, and then I'm going to look at what number do I want to stop adding to. I want to stop adding to B7. So at the end, it'll look like this, equals sum bracket B4 to B7, close bracket, okay? Oops, sorry, that was my mistake. Try that again, sum B4 to B7. There we go, and there's my total amount there. Okay, if that's too difficult, you don't need to do it that way. You can just re-add it yourself. That's no problem, okay? Now that I have this value here, 24150, I'm going to go back to here. I'm going to put 24150, so 24,000. I'm going to make sure I put the name of the country, Saudi Arabia, okay? And now I should have my two countries in one column, right? And then my two values in this column, making sure that the value I put here, the number here, is the one that relates to the Canadian total, and this is the amount related to the Saudi Arabia total. I'm going to take these two numbers together, and I'm going to make them into a graph. Now, if I make it into a pie chart, this doesn't make sense because they're two different numbers. They're not being compared in the same place, so they can't be part of the same total. I want the total amount for Saudi Arabia, and I want a separate total amount for Canada. So what I'm going to have to do is change the type of graph I'm using. So which graph lets us look at things if they're separated? Well, a bar graph does, right? Look at that, a bar graph does. So in this case, it lets me see the ideas separately. But the problem with the way I've done this is I can't right now, oops, where am I? Customize, I'm going to go to series. Right now I only have one column, so I can't change the colors of these two places. It's not a huge deal, you don't have to, but if you don't like that, because I don't like seeing the same colors if they're two separate things, then what you can do instead, very simply, is just change where you put the number. So in this case, I can copy this number, put it here, paste, okay? And then you're just going to move like that. The reason this will now let me change the colors is we made them into two separate columns. These are columns that go up and down. So now the computer will recognize them as two separate things and we don't have to keep the same color. So watch, same idea. All I've done is kept the value of total carbon under Saudi Arabia, the value that related to Canada under the Canadian one, and I'm going to go to Insert, Chart, and I'm already at bar chart, and now look, it lets me choose two different colors. Okay, if I want, I can even change the color to fit something that relates more to my country. So I know the flag for Saudi Arabia is green, so maybe I'm going to make it green because that reminds me of my home country. You don't have to. Okay, of course, I always do have to put a title. So in this case, we're comparing the total amount of carbon. So we'll say Layal's total carbon production. So that means how much carbon Layal made. Okay, so we're going to leave that as the title. If I want to keep consistent, the same type of style as I did my other ones, I can put this as centered, bolded. Oops, why is this not working? Okay, and I don't know why that's not working. All right. Okay, well in this case it's giving me problems, but before it usually worked, and then that would be it. So this would be good, and then of course I do need to make sure that I have a value that tells me what these numbers represent. So we need to label this y-axis. So in order to do that, it's really simple. We're still going to stay under the titles. We're just going to change it from the chart title to the vertical axis, which is the one that goes up and down. We're going to say carbon production carbon produced, and we're going to put in kilograms because a unit is really important for all numbers. And then that's it. So now it should say carbon produced in kilograms. We have it. It's good. I'm going to say, okay, great. And then voila, it is finished. I have this new graph. As always, I can copy this really quickly. I'm never going to delete my graph from my spreadsheet. I can always move it out of the way if I need to, but I don't want to delete it in case I want to come back to it later and edit it. It's going to be really fast to edit. I'm going to take my copied chart and I'm going to go to my spreadsheet, and now I'm actually going to maybe put it even before the pie charts. I'm going to put it in, make this background, sorry, I'm going to make the layout blank so it's really not in my way. I'm going to paste this new one, and look at that. Wow, really easy to understand the difference here. There's a huge difference between the amount of carbon created when Layal was living in Saudi Arabia versus when she came to Canada. Her lifestyle has really changed. And over here, we now get to compare her categories. And that's it. That is the activity for making graphs. Okay? Thanks a lot.